With the end of Jade's banner coming and the advent of Yunli and Huohuo's banner coming forward, I want to talk about, is she worth it for you? Especially if you're considering other units in the future who may be more beneficial to break characters like Firefly. Or if you're hypothetically a lover of Fu Xuan, or even just interested in Sparkle as she's in the second half and you want more cons of her, but you also don't want to skip out an Abundance character. I want to give you a rundown on her, both with her light cone and without, because I do think the light cone changes some things, but if you just want my honest recommendation here, I'd say if you have post-up conversation at S5, go with that over her light cone, because I personally recommend her E1 over her S1. For the footage you'll be seeing in the background, I will be switching her over to post-up conversation. We're going to run through one half of MOC just with Acheron in the background while I discuss her. I think Huohuo primarily holds value for a lot of you who do DOT teams because Huohuo gives attack percentage. This means that she's technically giving you a buff. She also has the benefit of giving you 20% energy no matter the cost of your burst. In Yunli's case, I believe her cost is 240, or in characters like Argenti's case, because he technically does have 2 full stacks of his burst he can fill up, she will fill up that entire 20% in relation to the entirety of his burst and not necessarily just the first half of it. So she holds benefit for a lot of you. She does not in any capacity benefit a character like Acheron because Acheron's burst isn't based on energy. Keep that in mind. Huohuo does hold more value if you have multiple teammates who want to burst. This could be, for example, maybe you're running a Sparkle and you want her ult up. Maybe you're running a character like Firefly and you just need that little bit of energy to get her back into her ult state. Or maybe you're running Jing Liu and you want her to use her ult so she gets another turn of her enhanced state. Those are all perfectly reasonable benefits to have and perfectly reasonable cases where she would be a nice to have character. However, she is not as simple as someone like Fu Xuan and doesn't have that plug and play nature. Because Fu Xuan has just one turn where she's going to use her skill, and that is it, and her table flip mechanic, i.e. where she essentially heals all the damage that's done to her, is very nice, Fu Xuan subsequently gives crit buffs. She's a overall much more simplistic character. Huohuo cleanses debuffs, but Huohuo does need to reapply her cleanse over time. This means that once every 2 to 3 turns, depending on her Idolon value or her Idolon level, you may be needing to reapply those buffs. She is a good healer, and she subsequently is a good cleanser, but she's not as good for emergency heals. Huohuo does not have an emergency heal with her burst. She is not Luocha. She is not someone who essentially helps out your entire party by dealing damage. If Huohuo is in a state to where she is debuffed and subsequently frozen, and nobody has her ult up, she is not doing much for you. I want that to be very clear. Her technique applies an attack down by 20%. It's not that beneficial. Honestly, I'd say you can skip it the vast majority of the time. As you can see here, it's a rejection of 25%, but it's only for 2 turns. It's not that valuable. Now, the main reason you're going to need, I would recommend, a healing set for Huohuo is specifically because of one extra skill point, unless you have somebody like Sparkle on the team, in which case skill points don't matter. This is because you want to start off your rotation with using Huohuo's skill immediately to apply her Divine Protection. These are the 3 stacks you're seeing right next to her. If you don't have E1, it's going to be 2 stacks. Every time her turn rolls around, she loses 1 stack. Now, Huohuo has 2 variations of a cleanse. First off, it's a cleanse whenever she uses her skill on the main target. Her skill does apply a blast heal, but the central target is the only one who gets that cleanse, first off. Now, what are the benefits of this Divine Protection? First off, so long as any character uses their ultimate, for instance, let's use Huohuo's now, as you see she's at 4345 HP, and the Trailblazer is at 2422. When she uses her ultimate, she heals herself and the next adjacent target. In this instance, it's Pella. But if Pella uses her ultimate, she heals nobody. Now, the main benefit of this is that it heals characters who are technically speaking below that 50% line. This sounds nice in theory, and in most cases it is. However, if you're using post-up conversation and not her signature LC, you want to keep in mind that it's not going to be healing no matter what. You will get healed whenever an ally's turn starts or when they use their own individual ultimate, but as you can see, when her turn rolls around, she loses 1 stack. This means that for most of you, starting with 1 stack or 2 stacks, you're going to get down to 1 stack and you need to be doing it again next turn. Now in this instance, Huohuo's debuffed. So when her turn rolls around, she's cleansed. That can happen up to 6 times. Pella uses her ult. If she had lower HP, she would be healed. Now why was any of that important? Well, it's important to consider one thing. First off, Huohuo's signature LC does reduce the energy regeneration rate. Post-up conversation gives more energy regen. It also gives outgoing healing when you use your ultimate. Huohuo is not healing you with her ultimate. That second half does not matter. The real benefit is the second half of her LC heals anybody regardless of their current HP as long as someone uses their ultimate. This allows her to have a bit more of a cushion when it comes to that ultimate. Instead of you only healing the character who's either actively using their ult or the characters who are below 50% HP, you heal the lowest HP character, whether they're above 50% or not. This gives you a good cushion. Beyond that, this additional attack isn't really worth it, I'm not gonna lie. Your main reason for pulling this would be the slight energy regen, the high base attack compared to something like post-op, and then subsequently also the additional healing as well to give you some cushion in the event that you need it. But bluntly speaking, that is all. In most situations, as someone who has this character and adores this character, I'm going to give you my honest opinion. First off, I think that she is a much more difficult healer to use in a lot of scenarios, because the vast majority of the times you prefer the crit buffs of Fu Xuan, and Fu Xuan's Idolons hold more value, or you prefer somebody like Luocha. She benefits Jin Liu teams, but not enough for me to really say, pull her for Jin Liu. Instead, I'd say, maybe hold off and just get a buffer for Jin Liu instead. She's very nice, but I think that E1 adds so much comfort to her that it's honestly a bit more difficult, because, in all honesty, she's a perfectly fine character at E0. But if you are in more skill point hungry teams, maybe you're using her with somebody like Acheron who wants to skill every turn, or somebody like Silverwolf, or somebody who wants to consistently apply a skill-based debuff. Then, yeah, she needs that. This is especially true, in my opinion, in any DOT team, because you want Black Swan, you want Kafka, you want both of their skills to be up relatively consistently. Huohuo needs the basic attack, sure, to essentially proc Kafka's follow-up attack, but also needs to reapply her skill, and that one extra turn means that she has more turns to basic attack. For Eidolon value, E2 is just a revive. Don't get me wrong, that's nice, but this is when an ally is hit, versus Fu Xuan's, which is the entire party. Now, Fu Xuan has a limit of 1 time per battle, but Huohuo is 2. This is really dependent on if you think you need it. In all honesty, if you are dying with a healer in your composition, unless it is Swarm Disaster or something high level like that, there is bigger problems for you. Her E4 is just healing. That's nice, but everything else around it already boosts that. And E6 is a nice damage buff. It's basically a Ting Yun. And this is for when healing a target ally. This means that it worked with her skill. This means it works with her burst. This means it works with her light cone. So overall, that's 50% damage buff across the board. But the problem is E2 to E4 are just not worth it. E2 to 5, realistically speaking, are not worth it. 20% flat energy is very nice, but Huohuo isn't providing you enough to warrant pulling for in a lot of circumstances. She's good, she's great as a healer, she's cute if you adore her, but she's not going to be a game changer for so many teams. She doesn't benefit Acheron. Firefly doesn't need her unless she needs 20% energy in some weird case scenarios. She benefits DOT teams because she gives a ton of attack, like 40% and I think like 52 with her light cone, so that's a nice big of attack. But in some circumstances, maybe you prefer somebody in the future who might reduce death if a character's weakness broken. If you're looking for a solid buffer, Fu Xuan is going to be better for you. If you're looking for a solid healer, yes, Huohuo performs well. However, if you're looking for someone who's much more plug and play and a little bit more simple, maybe Luocha is for you in that instance. I think Huohuo has niches where she shines, but I think within the current meta with the characters we do have, Huohuo isn't the best pick for Firefly if someone in the future who actively benefits weakness break comes out. Huohuo's attack benefits Firefly's conversion of attack into break effect, but that's it. Huohuo does not benefit Acheron. Huohuo benefits DOT teams, she benefits Sealy teams and Mono Quantum, but are you realistically going to pull for a character who benefits a Quantum character when that Quantum character already has a much better support, i.e. Fu Xuan, because Mono Quantum is extremely good. She could benefit units like Clara and Yun Li especially given her high burst costs, but Clara doesn't really benefit too much from her burst being up, or at least not as much as other characters. Whilst characters like Yanqing could benefit from it, Yanqing would rather have a shielder because he doesn't want to be hit at all. You see where I'm getting at here? She's a good healer, and she's the best in a few situations, but she's not so far and away the best character to the extent to where she's a game changer. Fu Xuan is a game changer for a lot of individual reasons. She has high crit buffs. She subsequently gets better with E1. She gets more damage oriented with her rest of her Idolons. She heals you at the start of each wave. She actually benefits Mono Quantum teams that are made for her. And in most circumstances, you can slot her into any team and she performs well. Her only big downside is large damaging AoE attacks. Huohuo doesn't have that. And while I think she's cute, one of the cutest characters in the game, I don't believe she's this must-pull character. I would say, next patch, if you're looking at Yun Li, if you have Clara, you might be able to skip Yun Li. If you have a healer already, maybe you have Fu Xuan. Maybe you have a hyper-invested Lynx, or a Luocha, or Adventurine and Japard, you could probably skip unless you really want to work out your DT teams. If you already have all that, go for Sparkle, and more specifically, maybe go for her E2, E1, or her Light Cone. All of them are worthwhile. I think Huohuo is a fine character. I would rate her as a 7 out of 10, but I think if you have other options, she becomes a 6 and even a 5. She isn't offering yet enough that's unique for me to justify pulling for her for a lot of you, or for me to say, you need this character. If this was like 40 energy, I would actively say this is good. If this is even a flat 50, I would say this is amazing. but 20 energy without a flat damage bonus isn't that good. The vast majority of you have attack on Acheron. You have attack on your DOT teams. You have attack on Jingliu because she's getting a bunch of attack. You have attack on someone like Firefly. And so it gets to a point of diminishing returns, especially if you pair her with Xingyuan. And so damage percent might be better. The speed is nice, but that's only with E1. The cleanse is nice, but that's like the best thing about her. Either way, if you go for her, good luck. I personally would probably continue going for her just because I'm not interested in anybody else in the future, and her Idolons are very cute, but I don't see significant value in this character, and I'm going to be honest, the only time I use her is when I use a DOT team, because most of my other teams have better units for them right now, and that's including characters like Bailu, who I just like a lot. So either way, I'll see you next time, good luck on your polls, and goodbye.